All right, what's up, everybody? This is Jacob here over at Sawyer Saloon, and I have with me the very talented Seth Hartley. Seth, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Jacob. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, man. So Seth is one of the guys that's going to be coming to the Laughing Out Loud Comedy Showcase and putting on at Crying Eagle in Lake Charles. And so, Seth, how long have you been doing comedy?
Man, I started when I was freshly 17 years old. It was a good day. And then I did stand-up twice. The first time I did awesome, and the second time I was like, well, I'm a comedian now, so anything I say is going to be amazing. So I did it a second time and bombed. And I mean bombed so hard, I like beat Rabbit, like 8 Mile, and like just stopped and dropped the mic and went out and threw up. Like, it wasn't good. So then I quit for 4 years. So technically 17, but really probably 21. So probably about 10 years now.
Wow, damn. I didn't realize you'd been at it that long.
Yeah, and I've also had times of quitting. So I moved to Colorado for 3 years. I quit the whole time there because you don't have to do comedy to find a drug dealer. There's just drug dealers at every corner. So I was like, wow, that kind of cut out what I needed. That was the only reason I did comedy, to let people know I was cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're like, because I look like a cop. You know, I look definitely like a cop. So do you. You and I walking around together, no one's ever going to sell us weed. They're literally going to think we're going to be arrested. Or they're gonna.
I'm not going to lie, though. I think that would be probably the funniest buddy cop movie if you and I went around. I mean, Starsky and Hutch, no competition.
Two comedians set out to find drugs or to bust drug dealers, and the way they're doing it is through the comedy scene.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh man, that's
like
awesome.
A 21 Jump Street. That's like but since I'm old, it'd be like a 31 Jump Street.
Right. Yeah. I'd be like, yeah, this is actually my dad.
Yeah.
And,
I adopted him.
Yeah.
Really.
That's awesome. So what was like the first joke that you ever wrote?
Man, the first joke that I ever wrote and I've ever told, and I still tell it because it's my favorite. I got held up. I got robbed at a Smoothie King that I was working at when I was in high school. So that was kind of the.
Oh my gosh!
I loved comedy, so I was part of I started watching the Family Dinner, so I'm part of the Family Dinner improv group as well now. But when I was 15, I started watching them. I didn't know stand-up comedy was even a thing in Baton Rouge. I started watching the Family Dinner, fell in love with them, and wanted to do improv. And then thought I wanted to do stand-up, but didn't have any stories or any ideas really. All I'd ever seen was used to love Jeff Foxworth and Billingall when I was a kid. So it was all I was like, they have families and they talk about mortgages and shit. Like I don't have that. So finally, on this fateful day when I was 17, I get robbed at a Smoothie King. And the next day, I had to skip school and go take pictures for senior year. Because I was a senior in high school, so I was taking the senior pics, like in your tuxedo and whatnot. But the school had heard about the robbery and thought that I skipped school because I was like traumatized or some shit. So when I get back to school Monday, I went to a Catholic school. So our religion teacher pulls me aside and pulls me with the counselor. And it's like, hey, we know you've been through this. Like, we understand it's going to be traumatizing and it's going to be difficult. So if you're ever feeling like some PTSD, just come into my guidance counselor office and, you can hang out. And so I started just abusing the shit out of it immediately. Like if I had a test and I was like, oh, I didn't study. And I'm like, oh, flashbacks, I'm getting robbed. I would go take a nap in her office. So then after that, the school kind of started to catch on a little bit. You know what I mean? They're like, I think this guy's using it for bad reasons. So my religion teacher asked me to speak in front of my religion class and to tell them how my faith in Jesus got me through being robbed. And I was like, I had no idea. So I just told the story of what happened to me. And by the end of it, my teacher is like crying, laughing. And so was the class. And he was like, hey man, you really need to go do stand up. And so that weekend I went and signed up and I did stand up I did an open mic the next week with that same story about how I got robbed at a Smoothie King. So it's, I still tell it because for me, I'm a storyteller. And some stories people want to hear, like every so often I'll have a friend be like, hey man, remember that time you got robbed? I'm like, you want me to say the whole thing or you want me to just give you some cliff notes? Like I can jump into the bit if you want me to, it's there. Or I can just be like, oh, I was robbed. It ended. He lived, I lived, and now he's in jail forever. But not from me. It's a different story. Come to the show and find out, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. That's an awesome party trick, though, man. Like, I'm sure you get this. I don't know what it was, but I went to Houston
right
this past couple of days. And so I had every single person that came up there went, all right, man. So come on, tell us a joke.
Yeah.
Tell us a joke. And I'm like, I mean, it's not, I mean, I don't know how you do it, but like, I mean, you tell stories. So it's like,
It's not easy.
right. It's all like, it's all prepped out, and it's all like every little thing is tuned in just right. So that way, you know, when you're going to stop talking, when you're going to let the tone you do make the laughter, when you're going to do all of that stuff. Not just like, you know, when it's 10 o'clock or I'm sorry, it's like 1 o'clock at the bar and someone comes up to you and is like, hey, well, why don't you tell me a joke, man? And you're
Right.
like, I'm trashed. I can't.
It's the worst part is that they're expecting you to have some sort of like a guy walks into a bar or like a priest and a Jew or some crazy shit like that. And it's like, dude, at this point, I really think the aliens put those jokes here because I don't know, they're not attributed to anybody. I don't think anyone's ever come up and be like, hey man, I'm the priest joke guy, you know? Or like even Boudreaux and Thibodeau jokes like for down here. It's just so, were they written on a stone, you know, like on some old Piro and someone's like, I found the 10 commandments of Boudreaux and Thibodeau. Like, I don't know what you expect. Those jokes exist, and I don't know who writes them. I've never thought of one of those ever. I've never sat there. You know what would be cool? You know, if a seagull flew into a window and then some whatever else happens. Like, I can't do it that way.
Yeah, it's that's funny though. So that's kind of like talking about the process. So like, what is your process for like writing material and coming up with different jokes?
It's more, and I feel bad for everyone who's in my vicinity all the time because I just workshop it on everybody. I'll usually just tell somebody about something that happened to me a few weeks ago or a few months ago, or like a few of my good friends. You know, all we ever do is just talk shit. You know, like you don't. No matter how old you are, you're not talking about your mortgage. You're not talking about your job. You just don't. You just talk about the shit that happened to you in your life. And so we'll go back and forth. Like a good buddy of mine, Tommy, most of my best jokes came from him and I bullshitting back and forth about a story that happened to me. And we just keep going. And he's very good at asking me like detail that an audience would like. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Sort of like, oh, well, what about this part? What about, you know, this thing? Or what happened here? Or what did that guy do? And I'm like, oh, shit, I forgot about that guy. That guy's central to this goddamn story. Thank you for reminding me about this guy. So I do that. I mean, I really just talk to everybody. And then sometimes I do like a call center exit survey. I'm like, so of what I just said, what did you find amusing? If there was anything, if I'm annoying you now, just punch me in the face and I'll leave. You know, I definitely call center people and I try to workshop everybody that I can. And 3 out of 10, you know, I talk a lot. I never shut up, as you can obviously tell. But look, if I'm batting over 300, I'm in the majors. So I'm throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, and if you're just constantly if you're just constantly talking like that, man, you're gonna have so much stuff to pull from, and like just constantly batting it off of people like that. That's what you want. You want like the so much quantity that you can sit there and like, okay, this was actually funny. Pull out the quality stuff, and then use that on stage.
Yeah, it's interesting because I pull from my own life, and if you think about how you could not narrate the past 2 weeks of what just happened to you at all. I mean, in any sort of correct context. And so you forget about all these little things until something way later on down the line reminds you of this one specific event that may have happened to you 3 days ago that I've forgotten for now until, 10 years from now, which probably didn't make any sense for me saying it. I almost like tenanted myself there. But that's what I'm doing. I like to mind my own life. I like to mind things that happen to me. I've got aging grandparents. I've lost a parent. I have nieces and nephews now that want to know stories about their parents. So like my nieces and nephews are both 8, 2 of the oldest ones. And so they're very interested in knowing how my dad murdered or how I was 8 or whatever. So I'm trying to remember these things that other people are, helping me unearth because they're asking me questions. And I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. This happened. So it's definitely fun. And it's fun to reminisce sometimes,
Oh, absolutely. So you said, she said you lost your dad. How long ago was that?
No, I lost my mom.
You lost your mom. Okay, sorry. It cut out there for a little second.
Oh no, it's
Gotcha.
2.5 years ago.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I lost my dad 10 years ago.
Oh wow, man.
So it's like, but like you said, like it's a cool way to like, we always have those stories that anytime we think about them, like we go back to. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. And those are the stories that we laugh about, and that's what you remember. And so that I think that's super important to be able to remember that, because that just, I don't know, it makes life so much more worth it, because you're like, hey, I had that person, the memories, and that relationship, and that's something special that you can find. And I think that's something awesome that comedy does, because you can pull that out.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you think about, what was that movie, The Giver, or the book too, The Giver, where only one person gets to have the wealth of knowledge of the history of what they've all been through. I mean, sometimes I think of comedians as some of the best historians. When you look at certain things, because everybody looks at the 60s and 70s and it's like, what was George Carlin saying? Well, who was the guy who was getting that? I think in our generation, a lot of people are going to look to what Bill Burr said about the world, about what he commented. You always look at, basically, like, you look at the angriest comedian and you're like, what really pissed that guy off? Like, that's the tipping point of like where the sensibility scale lies for comedy. So it's kind of fun being a historian of sorts. And it's an ancient thing, even back to being a jester. A jester was the only one who could fucking make fun of the king. Only one who got to do it. He had to be funny though, or he got killed. So I mean, that's your true audience. But I mean, that guy got to go around and be a jackass. So even the richest people, even the height of society, lowest society, people needed to laugh. So
absolutely, and that's our job, man. Yeah. What who's your favorite comedian besides yourself?
Myself. Watching my own videos starts to hurt, because you're just like, I could have done it this way, I could have done it that. You're your own worst critic. Like I said, I love Bill Burr, John Mulaney. Being a Catholic kid, growing up that way, I think sometimes so annoying how perfectly he gets it, because I'm like, I don't think I can even touch that topic because you crushed it. Like, there's no way I'm everything I'm coming up with after that is just shit. And he's so funny. But like I said, growing up, I liked Jeff Foxworthy, Bill Engvall, just those guys. It was really what my parents allowed me to listen to, because at the age of 6, I was asking for comedy CDs. I don't remember. This was what was told to me, that I was just burning through Jeff Foxworthy CDs when I was a kid. And so they were like, well, he's not going to say anything weird. And the most offensive thing you can call somebody is a redneck from this. So we're going to let him. We'll let him listen to this. They weren't. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I would have never expected you to have been a blue collar comedy tour kind of guy,
Yeah, man. And their stories. So if in the nexus of it, I guess for my basis, they're storytellers. I mean, those guys all told a lot more stories, but they did have that subset of jokes. You might be a redneck was a perfect little pipeline to put jokes in. But beyond that, and the same with Bill Engvall, he had his own little tag. Here's your sign.
There's your sign.
Little contacts. And after that, I got Dane Cook. So I was talking to someone about that, and I used to have so much more energy on stage, and I'm getting back to that. So you're going to see more moving around, because it is fun. But forever, I purposely changed my style because I love Dane Cook, and then all that stuff happened where people were accusing him of stealing jokes and all that sort of thing, and he kind of fell out of favor for so long, and so I hated it when people called me that, because I was around 16, 17 when I wanted to start, and that was when he was really huge. So everyone was like, oh, you want to do it to be you just want to be Dane Cook. You just want to tell your little story on stage just like him. And for me, I was like, well, it kind of goes further than that. And I'm just I have a lot of energy, so I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things where it kind of happened at the same time, and everyone's like, you're doing it because of that. And so then I really tried to change my style differently. And yeah, I mean, part of it is being true on stage. That, man. The more authentic you are, the better it is. So starting to get back to that. And
that's something I can relate to, because whenever I started, like, I love Sebastian Maniscalco. Like that's my favorite comedian. But he's very like on the stage, like very physical, going after it. So I had to pull myself back a lot, because I would find myself like, practicing or even on stage, and I'd do like a move or something, and I'm like, okay, I saw him do that. That's not that, like you said, you got to be authentic with it. But it's so weird how, like, whenever you watch a comedian and you see kind of what works with them, when in the beginning, that's what I did. Like, I'd watch different comedians and I'd be like, okay, what is he doing? How is it working? And how can I do it in my own way, to where it's like, I'm still doing, like, it's still authentic to me, but maybe like he's setting up a different type of joke. Right. Or maybe like learning how to pause like they do. Like, I remember I watched a Kevin James special, and it's the same as like King of Queens. Like, he was saying stuff that it was kind of funny, but he would just sit there and just like deer in the headlights, and it just made it so funny. And I was like, how is he doing that? So just like kind of figuring that out, and but also make it, like you said, keeping it authentic to yourself to where you're not copying off after somebody else. Because you don't want that. You know, you want to be your own person when you're up there.
That's the worst. That's the worst feeling. There's actually, I mean, I had it more recently. There was a joke. It was a joke I had called "Titties in the Wild," where when you see a boob you weren't supposed to see, that's the best boob. Like that's just in general, but not like in a creepy way. Like you're not looking for the boob. You know, it's unexpected. Like I was not promoting at all voyeurism or peeping tomism or anything isms of the sort. But it's just like, oh, like that's really cool. I was like, you can be 80 years old and be an Alzheimer's patient, and your daughter walks in the room, and you're like, oh, I don't know, and then all of a sudden her boob falls out, and you're like, that's so cool, boobie, and then you're like, I remember my first titty. It was, Evangeline McCormick, and it was at a sock hop, and she went to tie her shoe, and I became a man, and then he's totally lucid because that's just something crazy. Anyway. So I saw Mark Norman, who's actually a comedian from New Orleans, did a joke similar. He did it on like the Tonight Show, and it was totally obviously separate. Just any guy who thinks about boobs for a certain amount of time is going to come to that thought at some point and be like, that's a cool boob to see. So he did it, and then after that, I was like, well, I can't. And he did it obviously way better than I did because he's who he is. But I didn't want to see, even though it was authentic to me, I still didn't want anyone to think that I had ever ripped it from that guy, And It sucks because there are those times when you have a joke and you see a bigger person do it on TV or do it at a big stage, and you're like, well, we'll see you later, or you gotta like really flip it. You gotta be like, I gotta do something totally ass different, or it really is the same joke. And not to say that these people come down to see, it's not that at all. It's just there's only so many things to think about. And, as comedy's predominantly dudes, mostly straight dudes, we think about boobs quite often. So
absolutely.
Boobs and farts, man. That's
the two number one things that run through my mind every day. Boobs and farts.
That's true. And then food every so often, but only so the food can turn into farts.
Right, exactly. It's all a process.
It's a process.
That's awesome, man. So you're out in Baton Rouge. Right. What's the scene like in Baton Rouge? Because don't you run a open mic over there?
Yes. So we run pretty much the only open mic in Baton Rouge right now. So that's Wednesday nights at the station. We start basically between 8 and 9 to try to get the audience in there. It's a free show. It's a cool bar. They have great drink specials. We want everybody to kind of hang out and get the feel for it. Because once the room gets going, it's pretty fun. It starts to get rocking and rolling. So,
and that's a cool room that y'all have.
The best way to get a roller coaster to move is using some lubricating oil. You know what I'm saying? So get that lubrication in you, and we'll get this roller coaster started. That dry metal, you don't want that. You want to get that
right,
going.
Get the juices flowing.
But then so this week, Tuesday night at Squeaky Pete's, they're starting an open mic there. And that I also believe is at 7:30, 8 o'clock. So we'll have a Tuesday and a Wednesday show in Baton Rouge right now. Room for more. So we have the improv group as well. So there's the family dinner, which I'm a part of, as well as Vaughn Baton, who's in the scene as well. He runs a show with me I run the show with him really on Wednesdays at the station. And then there's Latco Leather Apron, long form improv. So they do shows on Fridays as well. So we try to keep Fridays open for the improv groups. Yeah. It's kind of just what we do. And then we do a once monthly show at the station for headliners. There will be another one June 25th coming up, which is going to be Josh Watts of Baton Rouge, Morgan Wright, and Vaughn Baton, and I might be hosting. I can't remember right offhand. Emails get sent. Sometimes not everything's approved just yet. So, I don't know if I'm giving you guys insider information or not. Let me put it that way. I might have broken some NDA and owe somebody $9. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Damn. Well, hopefully you're not in prison by the time the show comes around.
Oh man, that would be. I think I can afford the $9 though. That fine. I hope it's not jail time and a fine. I hope it's either or.
Right. Right. Hold
on. Or I might take the 19 minutes in jail and write a bit about it. I think I can get a tight 5 out of a loose 19 in jail. You know what I'm saying?
I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. I think you could definitely get that done.
So I might take the quick arrest, which I have done. I don't know if you've ever done it. And answer me this. Have you ever done something and your thought going into it was like, I think this is going to be a great story. You know what I mean? I was almost like a journalist. Like, I'm here for the scoop. Like, I'm here for the scoop of what's about to happen. Like, it's just the recipe for the disaster's already here. I just got to, like, latch on and get ready for the ride.
Hey, so you're talking about, like Like going up on stage and doing a bit, or like, hey, I'm gonna do this because I think this is gonna be a good story?
Oh yeah, I mean like in real life. I mean in real life, has something ever come up and you're like, in your brain you said probably not the greatest idea, but then the second part of your brain, which is the depressive, crazy part, which is the comedy part, was like, hey man, this is gonna be some cool shit, and no one else can say this that they've done anything like this, so I'm gonna hop on.
Man. Yeah, well, I remember one time, this was years ago, I was over at my buddy's house and they were like, dude, let's go get a sign, a street sign. And I was like, hey, why not? And for a second I was like, okay, I should probably go home. Because I know that if I go home, I'm still living with my mom at the time. I was like, she's gonna be pissed off if I come home with this sign. And but then like you said, that little other part came up and I was like, you know what? Let's go get a sign. So we went and grabbed the baseball bat and we drove to Sulphur. And so the way that we did it was we took the bat and we hit because the sign makes an X, on top.
Yeah.
So we hit it on one side and we would just sit there and hit it till it flew off. First one we couldn't get off because somebody came outside with the shotgun and yelled, "What the fuck are y'all doing?" But it was like South Louisiana talk, so it was like, "What the fuck are y'all doing?" And then so we just hopped in the truck and ran. And eventually went to go get another sign. And as I was moving out of my house a year ago, she did find the sign and was like, this is illegal. And I was like, it's what it is, Mom. But
what streets was it?
man, I don't remember. That's something they can put in the police report, honestly.
Okay, I see. You see, that's why I have to get on stage so you don't think I'm a narc. You were nervous to tell me.
I'm still a little nervous about posting. I may not. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Too much like that popo. That's funny. I've stolen a couple signs in my day. Stolen a couple signs.
Right. Well, so what about you? What's something that you've done that you were like, I probably shouldn't do this, but went for the story?
Man, I got married in Vegas.
Wait, what?
The prime example. Yeah, man. I got married to this chick in Las Vegas.
That's a little more permanent than stealing a sign.
I got it annulled.
That's good.
My mom's Catholic, so she was really upset when she found out. So she made me get it annulled, which is a little more expensive than a divorce, but I sprung for the extra money for God. What it just cracks me up that annulment divorce, like all of a sudden God's like, oh, you didn't, like, he's such a bureaucrat that he's like, you have the wrong paperwork here. I need this other one for you guys to get into heaven. But I played by the rules. But no, she it was right when I moved to Denver, Colorado. So I had moved and it was hard meeting people at first. Like when you move to a totally new area, I knew one guy, and he's the guy who convinced me to move out there. He said, hey man, you can come live on my floor. And so I did. I went to live on his floor and he said, we'll find a place together here and we'll get an apartment. I said, cool. And he was a single guy and he's like, we're going to go out and do the town. But every so often his ex-girlfriend would come and hang out, you know what I'm saying? And then a month into me over there, he's like, hey, my ex-girlfriend? I was like, yeah. He said, I think we're gonna get back together. I was like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, because I got her pregnant. And I was like, oh. And he's like, so you got to move out. I was like, oh. So the only person I know out there has just now kicked me out of their fucking house. So I move into an apartment with one of my boss's sons, which was cool, I guess.
Yeah.
It was a job I got drug tested at, but his son was like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, like sounded like him, biggest pothead on earth. And I'm like, dude, you're putting me into a trap. You know what I mean? That would be like someone who's like a sexaholic being roomed up with hookers. It's like, dude, what the fuck are you trying to do? I can't, come on, man. I just give him a little bit of money. He gives me what I want. I'm going to do it. Like, it's like putting a heroin addict in charge of a factory of needles. Like, they're going to do it. It's terrible. So I move out, and I was having trouble meeting people, so I ended up meeting this girl at the gym. And we started hanging out a little bit, and 28 days after we met, we were out at this restaurant bar thing called Gas Lamp in Denver. We're sitting in the corner, and she's talking to me, and she's like, so what got you to move out to Colorado? And in truth, I moved away from Louisiana for a while. I had actually been engaged to a girl. I dated the girl for 4 years, from 20 to 24. We got engaged. Things didn't work out. Somebody didn't want to grow up. So, that whole chestnut, the old age-old story of life. man can't grow up, becomes Peter Pan, flies away to Neverland, and marries Tinkerbell. You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I moved away, and I said, look, I moved away because I had to get away from this bad engagement, you know, whatever. I said, we broke it off. She goes, why? And I said, well, we weren't right for each other. A lot of it was my fault, to be fair. I said, she also became Bridezilla at the end. Like, anything I said, she was just like, why don't you pay for it then? I'm like, you asked me to help with the flowers. I don't want flowers. I don't give a shit about flowers. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But it got kind of that way. And so she's like, yeah, you know, I don't like a big wedding. And I was like, yeah, after that mess, I said, I just want a small wedding. She was like, well, my parents elope. And I said, yeah, that sounds awesome. I think that's what I would do. And she goes, well, do you want to elope? And I said, I just told you, yeah, that's what I would do. It sounds awesome. And then in this bar, she got down on one knee and she goes, no, will you marry me? And I said, my exact answer was, well, fuck it. So we were out on this Friday night and, you know, we were drinking, smoking, everything. It was Colorado.
Right.
Next day, I have to go to, I sold cars at the time because she was like, well, let's go now. And I was like, I got to work tomorrow. Like, I can't miss work for my wedding. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta go. And so I 100% thought in the morning we were going to wake up and be like, ha, 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 you asked me to marry you. That's so funny. We were so drunk. How stupid of us. And then that was going to be life, you know? Like, that was
right,
it.
Yeah. It was a weird fever dream after that.
So I'm at work and I'm getting these text messages and she's like, just bought a dress, LOL. And I'm like, I thought she was kidding. She put LOL at the end. That's what I thought.
She bought a whole ass dress and everything.
That's what she says. And then she's like, oh, what time would you want to get married? By sunset or this time? And I was like, let's do sunset. Again, being a total, just thinking it's hilarious. I'm just thinking we're LOLing through this whole, you know, when am I ever serious? Ever. You know, right. So I'm thinking this girl picks up on my vibes of like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So she's like, okay, got us to chapel, 6:30, it's booked. And I was like, whatever. And she's like, she's like, I'm packing you a bag and I'll come get you from work. We're going to leave after work. Or no, she's like, we're going to go get a celebration dinner after work. So I was like, cool. I thought we were just going to like have a joke dinner. So I get done with work that day, get over. There's a whole ass bag packed in her car. And she's like, we're going to get steak dinner and then we're driving to Las Vegas tonight. And I was like, and I go through my head and I'm like, man, I just got out of, you know what I mean? Like I was just 4 years and 28 days, you know, 28 days later for real. And then
that's even scarier than the movie.
It was a little scary. But I was like, she was very cool. We were good friends. And I was like, this is the only person I even know in this area. I was damned if I was going to move back home. Moving back home was not happening. Right. Everybody on earth at the time was like, you're not going to make it 5 months, 4 months, 6 months. Because me and my mom were very close. And one reason I did move was because I had never done adult things for myself, like cut my own meat for dinner. You know, I had moved away and I still came home every week. My mom did all my laundry, folded all my clothes, made food for me, packed it up. I wasn't a grown man. I really was a child. So I moved away and I was like, I'm going to go off into the woods like it's Rome. I'm just going to go out there and starve and die, or I'm going to, you know, flourish, but I'm never coming back here. I mean, I'm back now, but that's a totally different reason. But that sort of thing. Now I know how to like do the laundry even. But so we drove to Vegas, man, and we got married.
Wow.
Now there is more to that story, and that could be the story that I tell, which, because very funnily, tomorrow would be the anniversary of our wedding.
Damn. Well, hey, here's to you, man. Here's the anniversary.
I don't have it right. Here we go. Empty cup.
There we go.
So yes, awesome. That's been one of those things where I did it, and it was just like, it was fun.
That's a lot cooler than stealing a sign, I'm going to be honest with you.
Man, that's one of those stories that everyone has. People, I mean, they make movies about, you know, getting married in Vegas to a stranger and stuff, because it is this crazy, stupid thing. And I've always heard of people who were like, you know, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I've heard those stories. Oh, I knew a guy who knew a guy who did it. And so then all of a sudden, when I was the guy who they knew did it, it got to be pretty funny for a while. Because for like the first year, when I would go back home to visit, like I would come home for Mardi Gras, I would have people. I had 7 years old was the last time I saw him. Like, hey man, You got married in Vegas. Is that true? Is that true? You tell me about it. And so I would, and I think they just did it for their own story, so they could go tell all their buddies at work, be like, "Hey, man, I know a guy."
Oh yeah.
Like I became their water cooler story. You know what I mean? Like that was.
You became the jester.
I became the jester. Yeah, exactly. Full circle. Full circle.
Full circle.
What got you into it, Jacob? I am curious. What got you into comedy?
So so let's see. So I was originally going to go to law school whenever I was in college, whenever I started college.
Oh,
And so for my second year, so it was my sophomore year of college, I worked at a law firm. Loved the people there, didn't really like the whole law environment. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I had a buddy of mine who had started his own company where he sold like fishing shirts and all kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Maybe I could do business stuff. So I started a company. I worked for him for 6 months. And then he fired me because I was a terrible salesman and I knew nothing about fishing, which is kind of important if you're selling fishing clothing. And I remember the last event he looked at me because I would just sit there and I would do impressions. And I would walk up and nobody would know who I was. So I would walk up to his table while he's trying to sell something to somebody and then pull a Borat and like, this is nice. How much? and he would like always give me looks and he would be dying laughing. And the person would be like, I'll just take a shirt. Thank you. So it was like made them super uncomfortable, but we always had a good time. And he was like, dude, you should do stand-up comedy. And I was like, man, I don't know. So after so many times of them telling me that, I was like, dude, fuck it. So we had a bar that we normally go to. I called up the manager. I was like, look, dude, I want to do a comedy night and I want to get just on like a day where nothing's going on and just see what happens. So I remember I invited everyone on Facebook, pulled the whole Facebook event, like texting everybody, letting them know. And so I was in a fraternity at McNeese and there was about 60 people that came that night. And most of them were people in the fraternity and their girlfriends. And so, but we had a good time. I went on, I did 30 minutes and it was all just, it was not a lot of it was that good, but they all laughed because they were being supportive, Right. So, but I remember I ended it with the president's joke. I know you've heard me say that one before where, I impersonate all the presidents because that's whenever I had originally started off, I didn't really have very many stories or anything like that. So what I would do is it almost like the way the best way I can think of it is like an SNL skit. Like I would say, okay, I can do these impressions. How can I make a joke or come up with the story or like make these people do something and put them into an environment that's like, okay, that would be fun.
Right.
So that's how the president's joke came up. So I was like, okay, I know I can do these voices. Let me just throw them in an environment. So that's what a lot of the jokes were. I did a joke where I grabbed a whole bunch of random things from my house and put them in a box. And I said, yeah, my older cousin just left this box here. Let me see what's going on with him. And just like pulled out all kind of random things. It was like, oh, this must be for this. Like one of them was like a red nose that you would put on for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow. And I like put it like right over my mouth. Like it was one of those, sex things. And I was like, oh, cool. I know he's been trying to lose weight. That'll definitely help him out there. And so just goofy stuff like that. And but that show went well. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep trying and keep doing it. And so got a little bit better at the jokes. And then the next show was like everyone who like knew me, like they were like, okay, whatever, he's putting that on. But then after I did that first show, they were like, oh, okay. Like they started to take it serious because like, okay, like he actually is doing this. And so like the next show I did, like it got bigger. And it kept getting bigger and bigger until COVID hit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I had a show there and I had like 150 people there. And I bring that up because I remember I looked out in the crowd and I just remember everyone laughing and having a good time and like bringing people that emotion. I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to make people laugh. Because like I know that there's so much grief, so much trouble in the world, like heartache, like we lose people, we have all these different things that go on. But if someone's going to come out and spend some hard-earned money that they work for all week just to come laugh for 30 minutes,
right,
it's worth it for me, man.
No, dude, that's what's up. Because so you talked about seeing the people laugh, right? So I did when I was living in Memphis, I did a brewery show, and there was like, I think like 200 and something people. And that was for me at the time. And in the way that the place was set up was that it was packed to the gills. Like we had to have a separate speaker back there so the back could even hear us from
That's
the
awesome.
first set. So we had a pipe. I mean, it was pretty crazy. So I did a whole set and I did some jokes by my mom. And so it was good. And I brought it through, and this was before she passed away. So I do these jokes. And at one point I was waiting for it, and I normally would rush. And this was the first time that I really understood to just like hold. And I held and I looked, and the wave of laughter went through, and then it stopped. And I saw someone put their hand on their friend's mouth, like, wait, he's not, like, let him finish sort of thing. And when that happened, it was like, I don't think I've ever had a bigger smile on my face. I was like, holy crap. Like, these people are just waiting. So they did it, and it rolled and it crushed. And then after, I had a bunch of people come up to me and talk. Because my mom and I were like, we were just like buddies sort of thing, you know what I mean? So they were like, oh, does your mom really like that? I'd love to hang out with her or whatever. And so before she passed away, at the end of every one of my sets, I called my mom, no matter what time of day or night it was, and we would talk. And I would just tell her what I said or sort of thing. And a lot of times I wouldn't tell her exactly what I said. You know?
Right.
You're getting like, oh, I told him a story about my friend this, you know, it didn't say like, you know, it was about him, you know, falling over and getting something shoved in his ass or something weird. But like, you know, like that.
Right.
But so the jokes that I told that had her in it, I told to her. So I was like, oh, you know, I told these jokes, and I just like, oh, you did? And I was like, yeah. And then, you know, everybody liked them, and they asked, you know, how cool you were, and they wanted to hang out with you. She always loved that. And so for me, that memory, and when you said that, it just reminded me of that because she passed away the next week. So that was the last set that I got to do. And so that was the last time that I called her about doing jokes and doing whatever. And so it was, to me, that'll always hold true. And so when you said that, just reminded me of it, was that first real roll of laughter. And I mean, it happens in the smaller rooms. When you get in one of those, that bigger scenario and you kind of see it, you know, and you see that joy and that whatever, it's crazy. So it's fun. And that's definitely something I'll always hold and be like, man, that's the best feeling in the world. I don't think there was any other feeling I could have besides that. You know what I mean? I felt like I was levitating. I mean, how people talk about when they do drugs, I mean, that's how I felt in that moment. I was like, dude, I am high, I'm above, third world, you know, bird's eye view, looking out, looking in. It's one of those things that it does. And it changes everyone for that amount of time, and everyone feels a little bit better.
I couldn't agree more with you, man. That's a very powerful and emotional memory. I'm very glad you shared that with me, dude. That's awesome. For sure. Well, look, man, I appreciate you coming on to Sawyer Saloon with me. But this is for our upcoming show that we have. It is the Laughing Out Loud Comedy Showcase. It's going to be me, Seth, Barrett Kyle's going to be hosting, and we're also going to have Cold Charter and Patrick Eady from Houston come out. So we're going to have people from all over the state, Louisiana, Texas coming out. So it's going to be at Crying Eagle Brewery, July 31st at 8 p.m. You can get your tickets at the link that's going to be in the podcast description. Make sure to get your tickets in case we run out of spots.
Get your tickets. They will sell out. They will sell out. They will. You want to know why? Because you want to come. I know you do.
Yeah, all right. Sounds good, man. Well, all right. Yeah, let's so we're going to close it out. Seth, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, man. Jacob, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, man. We'll see y'all next time on Sawyer Saloon.